So we're looking at what affects our health. Okay, so this is where the separation comes in. And the separation comes in intentionally so that we can be able to kind of pinpoint, specific things when we see them. And until if I doing a per se ye chichemu, send ye beya say bibi ye we touch ya ye to me who so okay, when they physical health and when they mental health and also when they emotional health. Inti say ye kasa niye maybe ya etumi affect ye ya pomudin and now say ye physical health no. Bibi to say ya dear. Send ya maybe can no. If you have physical illness, yen fan say we fun ya wo ya. Ana say uti eya wo ya uti pai wo pa we on hwe ye. God forbid, or something like high blood pressure. Or even diabetes, or those physical sicknesses that affects the body. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. It can affect, your physical health. Ya die bie ni ho no ma ye good ema, our body. Now, scientists will tell you that you develop immunity. When you get sick or when kids are exposed to germs, they develop immunity. That is true. No repeated exposure to any illness and as a disease, because then the immunity that you're supposed to get, germs, and mutate, becomes stronger, and they are able to weaken, the white blood cells and the defense mechanism in the body. And until good to say we have some exposure, to physical illness, but when it repeats itself, is not good for our physical health. I think so say physical activity. Physical activities is say, walking, moderate exercising, and stuff like that. It is very, very important for us to also know, say, all these things affect our health. And until as we go about our day-to-day activities, we want to pay attention to some of these physical activities. I know, say, there are a lot of moms on here, and like myself, the first person to wake up and the last person to go to bed. And after chasing the kids run and running their schedules and all that, I feel like I've already gotten my activity, my physical exercise already. But at the same time, it's very important for us to make time, for moderate exercise here and there. What we eat and drink is also very important. Sometimes ya pomodie no ye feel so nia medi ne nia menom ne de enye big deal ehun hia na mmom no se wo hwe researcher e kire se nia yedi ene nia ye no ehun hia papa ye esane se nia ye no anase nia ye di no whatever content it is, it can lead to physical illness. Obi a otedi sichire pa. Ebi ohokra ebi na we need genetic factors our family no. SSM will develop diabetes. No, because of that environmental factors no, and our lifestyle no. Then you don't pay attention. You might even have pre-diabetes, or you might become pre-diabetic, and that's obesity. Obesity in Sunanya de papa. I know the nurse is one way they are mindful about our BMI, the weight versus your height and all that, because they tell you when your BMI goes beyond a certain number now, it puts you at risk for diseases, and then they start monitoring you. And that's a chronic fatigue. Chronic fatigue syndrome, obia de bia no wabre. Onye hwekra no wabre. Ontumi nsore kwa. Say, utumi say de bia no wabre. And sometimes no nia ye di no etumi induce sa fatigue no. And until no nia ye di ene nia ye no no. Ehun ehia papa ema ya pomodie. And we talk about a high blood pressure as well, and so many other diseases out there that affect our physical health. Nothing so ye ba ya dream apomodia na say our mental health a day affect ya dream apomodin or mental health. You know, we talk about family factors or genetics in the family. You know, if a family is, you know, predisposed, I'm trying to say there's a history, a family history of anxiety, okay? Now, there's traces of that anxiety here and there. One thing I've realized is, you know, growing up in Ghana, when we talk about family history, and I say, you know, even not necessarily mental health, but even our physical health. Once I have said, say, what is, you know, say any family history of, you know, diabetes or high blood pressure or, you know, stuff like that. You know, and when I came to America at first, you know, it was hard for me to answer those questions. I don't know about you, but it was hard for me to answer those questions because it's something that we don't discuss. And yeah, dear, you can't you don't really know your family history. Now we'll watch it out for certain things. You know, here, if you know you're predisposed to something, at least you're mindful of it. But because it's a come one same sometimes we don't know. So if there's a family history, you know, of maybe anxiety disorder, you know, you become predisposed to that. And environmental factors and our lifestyle can also bring about mental health. Now, when we talk about stresses are things that are going on in our lives every single day. You know, it increases our stress or your friends and stress hormones, because the stress hormones are actually produced and released when we are under intense stress. And until they be done say lifestyle no very high, intense stress repeated day in and day out. Say you become chronically traumatized. You traumatize the body chronically. Into they be done your senses is heightened. Because every time we are under stress, you know, there's an excess of adrenaline that is produced to get the body going and moving at a very fast pace. You know, you can either respond to, you know, the fight or the flight response. And we have a third response, which is the freeze. Because when some people encounter danger, or no one to mean, you know, or no swa, you know, on to me, once and we freeze. No osihosa. And you know, when you put yourself under constant stress now, you have like you chronically traumatize your body. And I think so unhealthy relationships. You know, this can be immediate family or friends, unhealthy relationships. You know, unfortunately, if that unhealthy relationship dynamics, our dear moi, then the not just say, you know, for instance, if there is any physical violence, emotional violence in the marital, like between partners, because then you're exposing yourself to triggering mental health disorder. And I think so childhood trauma, you know, and I'm very passionate about childhood trauma because in our culture, no, we only speak one way about about attended and I can tell you that, you know, I had to conscious, and every day is a struggle. I don't use abano, but sometimes I'm like, seriously, you know, and then why and it's a constant struggle. In research, say when children grow under household that there is tension, you know, attenbidie and all that, you know, it actually triggers their stress hormones way sooner than, you know, expected. And at the constant triggering and re-triggering of the stress hormones, you know, Emma akolani niya, Emma niye easier say obenya mental health disorder. And tina wofu a wahe, as I say, Miss Meka ho, as I say, to me, pay attention to some of these things. because ye be hu ni so o akwala ne se me ma na aduane di na pomuden ye na se ne di kankan na pomuden ye no enkyere se na adwuma pomuden no nso eye no honam apomuden no eye na emom na no so nkyere se na adwuma apomuden no eye okay nti na se betimi ehwe ho nso isolation, especially yemwa yewo collabium no once a collabium teenagers and it's normal for them when they reach that stage they want privacy na mom no akola nya too much privacy and as a one kasa no even in your marital relationship na wutumi hu se agro na menimi kuno ewo no ene nyonkofa na first ne wo no entisa na mom no atisa roommate bisa no we ba na we ya na ade no ko we so ya na ade no ko and you feel said there is that this distance and isolation in the marriage and I say in your partnership now once akola no so isolate here you want to be careful about that. You want to address that. And I think so lack of spiritual and emotional support. Sometimes when we talk about our mental health, most of us don't really think about the fact to say spiritual health. Yeah, sorry, any young way, being part of the church, being part of an organization like the Sisters Network, having that interaction with the women's ministry. Sometimes, but then research shows that our spiritual health is equally as important as our physical health and our mental health, because say your spiritual health solid. Physical illness it changes your perspective, and I'll talk about that a little later. And your emotional help and our support is very important to say to me connected with Nyokufo. They strengthen our relationship, they help us to develop healthy emotions, and until all these things are factors that can affect our mental health. I think you share your emotional health and so your emotional health so you share your cancer emotional health that you think say wofu ana weni aje sa tinkan na wo ye hunne mu no na ye kan ho asemi. So the factors that affect our emotional health, we look at our self-esteem. Self-esteem ne ye senya ye yankasa ye si ehu ye ho efa enye ne obi hu ye ho fo. But how we define ourselves, it affects our emotional well-being. A sense of belonging and love. So whether being in a marriage or whether as a child, it to me a hard dream papa because it to me ma akwala na tinka no and develop ye. Most of they no emusu they instead of experiencing all the different emotions, the child might have predominantly only 3 or 2 emotions: sad, happy, sad, but if you have a sense of belonging, and as a plan, so it means a perspective set now for donor, they are able to develop healthy, emotional, healthy skills. Should be to say unforgiveness, ni bitterness. No, because unforgiveness, ni bitterness, and also the fire pomodi. It is very, very important. Research actually shows the set so we share unforgiveness and a bitterness. It takes a lot more energy to hold that unforgiveness in, to hold the bitterness in, rather than letting it out. Enti say obi yo bibi obi fomo na sa wo de show mu na de bia wo de especially when it's your spouse. And no cry ya saying bibia, because sometimes you feel like your spouse should know you better. But then no obi say was spouse na bia wa ye bibi from so aka na de bia so that one na sense here wo de show mo bon say no cry ya pa se ni abonto so ni ayo bibia ya wo ya. And now say, Ubomusa kolai bibu sakolai na so den dodo na say, na de bia na show musa na. That unforgiveness, and also yonkofo cry, unforgiveness and bitterness, it shows that research actually shows that negative emotions, it to me taking a lot more energy. And when it's taking a lot more energy out of your body, guess what? It affects your physical health and it affects your mental health as well. Because now you are having what we call ruminating thought and racing thought. Ruminating thoughts and your thoughts which keep playing over and over and over again in your mind. Now, and then it can lead to racing thoughts. Racing thoughts and thoughts that passes so quickly in your head and you don't even have time to process. By the time I become over process, enough for also as I'm baby. And racing thought and ruminating thought can keep you awake at night. Oh, that crowd won't to me end. Into unforgiveness and bitterness and not anger and not a hard dream, papa. I think so, gossip and also rumors. It's like there's so much energy spent in there trying to talk about other people, trying to spread rumors about other people. Not only is it affecting you personally, but it's also affecting the person that the rumor is about. And until we share the two sides in the krana, into these are some of the things that we want to take a look at. And again, our physical health, also affect our emotional health. And a sense of fulfillment. So why it affects your emotional health. And once again, our spirituality also affects our emotional health.